Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric, and you know what time of the month it is? It's time for the new MAME release. MAME 282 is out and it brings a ton of improvements to a lot of your favorite 3D platforms on MAME. And recently in 2025, 3D platforms have been getting a lot of emulation updates, so we're going to be going over everything of note in MAME this month. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But right off the top, let's get into some Sega Model 2 improvements. Because last time we talked about Virtua Fighter 2, it definitely ran well, but there were a lot of graphical glitches. Would make the game really unplayable in any way, shape, or form, but it was one of those things. It wasn't really keeping up with real Sega Model 2 hardware or the Model 2 emulator standalone. But there's definitely been a lot of improvements under the hood when it comes to Model 2 emulation in MAME this month. Although there have been a few regressions as well, but that's kind of part and parcel the development process and how it works. For everything you improve, something might break, and so you can take a look at why that broke and then basically string it all back together again. But I will say the performance here in Virtua Fighter 2 is way better than it was last month, and definitely the month before that, because we got a lot more graphics here, a lot of the texture filtering is in place, and basically all of the things that make the Model 2 look are going to be in place at least for Virtua Fighter 2. And leave me a comment down below and you tell me if you've been playing Model 2 on MAME or if you've still been using the standalone emulator, because I would be curious. Because I know a ton of people want Model 2 perfect emulation within MAME, and we're definitely getting a lot closer to that this month. And you'll see here as we actually play the first round of Virtua Fighter 2, the fluidity in the motion, the frame rate, the graphics, all seem to be doing, for at least for my eye, exactly what I would expect them to. Now, of course, I only have the one set of eyes, you guys have thousands, so definitely if you see anything that you don't like here that seems out of place, do leave me that comment down below. But honestly, Virtua Fighter 2 is one of Sega's best games ever made, and the fact that it's working this well in MAME 282 is an absolute achievement, because this is not easy hardware to emulate. It is very complex, and the people working on this are definitely killing it when it comes to Virtua Fighter 2 at least. And that definitely is a big improvement, because even though we have the standalone Model 2 emulator and it does a really good job, it hasn't been updated in the longest time, development has ceased, and it's one of those things, the UI definitely leaves a little bit to be desired because it hasn't been touched in a long time. And with MAME and Model 2, if you do use a front end, you can get everything running, looking pretty, that way you have your graphic art, your covers and everything like that, so you can select it from your arcade cabinet or however you play MAME. And I am curious, and tell me down below, do you use MAME on an arcade cabinet? Do you just sit at your PC? Do you have it on a console? I would be curious about that as well. For me, I'm definitely a console or PC user, because in my current house I don't have really any room for an arcade cabinet, but my wife and I are closing on a house and we'll be moving in January 5th, so hopefully sometime in the spring I can get a candy cab in there and then do an entire series on MAME emulation in arcade cabinets, have real arcade PCBs and everything else. But I know there's a lot of different ways to enjoy MAME, the only wrong way is to not try it at all. Now moving over to Gunblade New York, one of my favorite Model 2 games. This is one that's definitely seen a lot of graphical improvements in the most recent version of MAME as well. And because I did use test versions before MAME 282 was officially out, I can guarantee you can play this game and see the credits scroll with no issues whatsoever. And I would say the graphics are definitely improved here, maybe 85 to 90% of the way of looking like a real Sega Model 2 board, and that definitely is important. Because trust me, you don't want to get into collecting these big PCBs. They are massive and a pain to deal with. Now I'm leaving the controls uncalibrated because I want to point something out when you actually get into the game. A lot of improvements in emulation sometimes come in the actual controls, and since this is basically going to be an analog game, you will see here that the aiming reticle is at the bottom left of the screen. Now you can totally fix that if you go into the test menu and calibrate the aim with the analog stick, flight stick, or gun for IR or Sinden you are using, but it is something you need to address. And again, I'm not knocking the emulation whatsoever. I'm always impressed by this and I always think it's outstanding, but if you guys notice that the aim is off in Gunblade New York, you're going to know why. But it's one of those things that'll definitely get improved over time like everything else. Is it going to take a month, 6 months, a year, 2 years, or 5 years to get Model 2 emulation perfect in MAME? I have absolutely no idea, but we're definitely seeing a lot of improvements, and that makes a very big deal. And I will say the big improvement this time around is just going to be the graphics are going to be better, the texture filtering is going to be more appropriate to what real Model 2 hardware would do. And trust me, getting these things to emulate is no easy task, because the Model 2 was complex hardware for its time and era, and it is still impressive today. Honestly, I still think these games hold up incredibly well. So it might take some time to actually get this thing 100% perfect, but I am sure it'll definitely get there. But like I said earlier, you can get to the credit scroll on something like Gunblade New York, you can play the entire game and have a ton of fun. And trust me, that's a hell of a lot better than actually collecting Model 2 arcade PCBs. They're absolutely massive and take up a ton of space. Now moving over to one of the games that I've seen some regressions on, this is Dead or Alive, and you'll see there some of the background is falling off too much into black, and some of the textures are kind of fading in and fading out, not the way that the arcade PCB would actually perform. Now that is totally fine even if it is a regression, because that is a lot of the development process, whether it's software emulation or Mr. FPGA, regressions happen and people learn from them. But I will say the audio here seems to be perfect, so go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, and I'll be right back with a lot more. And that sounds very close to what Model 2 Dead or Alive should sound like, but when you actually load in between matches, some of the audio clips out, so I did remove that, especially if you were wearing headphones. So nothing about Dead or Alive on MAME 282 is going to be perfect, but that isn't to be expected. But you'll see here, it is working, it is running at full speed, so it just needs to get some graphical improvements. But again, that is how all these developments actually work out. And it's really interesting because Sumi there is sometimes missing her eyeballs completely, other times they appear, so maybe we can just call this a haunted version of something like Dead or Alive. And just like the other games I've shown you, if you've never played Dead or Alive before the original, it is absolutely still a straight up 10 out of 10 3D fighting game. And if I'm being entirely honest, it is my preferred game on the Sega Model 2 versus something like Virtual Fighter 2. You leave me a comment down below and you tell me, are you more of a Virtual Fighter fan or more of a Dead or Alive fan? And I always love the camera angles in this game. They definitely wanted you to see certain aspects of the models and just how good they can actually model them. Let's move over to Namco System 23, another very impressive piece of 3D arcade hardware that has definitely seen a lot of improvements in MAME 282. And I will leave a link in the description below to all of the different update text, because trust me, I don't cover every single thing that's changed in MAME monthly. It would end up being a 5-hour video, and it would be a lot of things on different chess machines and calculators, which is totally fine that people want to preserve those. I'm all for it, but I just kind of bring you the top level notes of some of the most popular games out there. So taking a look at 500GP, a game I showed before, this is definitely running a lot better, and it looks a lot better at the same time. Although the tachometer glitch is going to be in this game still, but I am sure it's something that can be fixed up in the future. But honestly, at the beginning of the year, Namco System 23 barely did anything whatsoever on MAME. There were a few games you could get running, but they definitely had a lot of graphical glitches and just weren't really experiences that you would want to sit down and play. And even though the tachometer being in the middle of the screen is absolutely going to drive you nuts, it drove me nuts as well. It's one of those things that seeing improvements is definitely an important thing. Because trust me, a lot of the System 23 and Super System 23 games are definitely rare these days, and actually seeing an arcade cabinet for them out in the wild is exceedingly rare. And these PCBs are absolutely massive. They make Model 2 look small. You can basically use one as a coffee table. They get that big. Might be over exaggerating a little bit, but trust me, they are not tiny. And actually having these games work in MAME for 99.99% of people is just going to be the preferred way to enjoy them. But on the performance side of things at least, everything here is adhering to exactly what I would expect something like the actual Namco System 23 to do. And the fun part is, in previous months, something like 500GP was 100% playable, but there are new games in MAME 282 this month that I actually got to sit down and enjoy, even if they are a little bit janky. Games that really I wouldn't classify as playable before. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me if you ever played 500GP in the arcades or not. I remember seeing this thing maybe like 2004 or 2005, somewhere on the West Coast, maybe in Portland or maybe in Seattle. The only time I actually ever played an arcade cabinet for this game, and I definitely had a lot of fun. But I have not seen one in like 2 decades at this point in time, so if you do know where there is one, leave me that comment down below because I would be curious. But definitely check out 500GP and MAME 282 this month. You can definitely have a lot more fun with it than you could previously. Well, let's move over to Angler King, basically Namco's challenge to Sega's bass fishing, and it basically is the same concept but on completely different hardware. Now, last time I took a look at this, I couldn't figure out how to control it whatsoever, and the fish were absolutely corrupt and I could barely see them. Now in this game, you absolutely can catch a fish, you can get it on your hook, reel it into your boat, and celebrate. And even though the graphics definitely aren't correct here, you have enough of them to actually understand what's going on in the game. And I will say that the soundtrack and sound quality in the music definitely definitely gotten a lot better as well. So we're moving into soundtrack sample 2. Go ahead and listen to Namco System 23 Angular King for about 45 seconds, but come back because I got more Namco System 23 to show you and a lot more improvements in MAME, because trust me, October was a big month when it came to arcade emulation. That sounds exactly like Angular King should, and I have played this game maybe 7 or 8 years ago when I was traveling on vacation, but for the first time ever in MAME, I was actually able to catch a fish because I could see it and the controls seemed to be good enough and the graphics seemed to be good enough to allow me to do it, and damn it, I caught an absolute monster of a bass there. Not sure if that's a record, but it certainly felt like it. And when Angular King controls well, there's other games on Namco System 23 that definitely could still use a little improvement in the control department, like you see here, racing a bike directly into a brick wall. Or something like Gunman War, another Namco System 23 game. You have some of the graphics here, but they end up stopping, and you don't see a lot of the models. When you actually get into the game, it's just black screens. You can hear the audio underneath it, but you can't actually play the game, which is a bummer, because I've literally never played Gunman War before. I've never seen a cabinet, it's never emulated, so this is a game, and trust me, I've played probably thousands of arcade games at this point in time in my life, that I've never actually got the experience and enjoyed playing the game. So if you have played this one before, you leave me a comment down below and you tell me what it's like, because I would say anything else other than this one would be second place when it comes to games I'd love to play in MAME in maybe the next 6 months or so. I'm just very curious what Gunman War is all about. It looks fun from original gameplay captures that I've seen on YouTube, but it's one of those things I've yet to experience the game, and I would absolutely love to. But you'll see here, once you get into the game, this is the entire image you get, but it is running in the background because you can hear audio. Now speaking of audio, my segue into Hyper Neo Geo 64, I did talk about this in a preview version, but I'm going to do some Beastbuster Second Nightmare gameplay and audio soundtrack samples for you here, because today is Halloween, and what's better than blowing up some zombies, seeing all those entrails and spines just absolutely straight up coming out. I am so happy that Hyper Neo Geo 64 has seen all of these improvements, not just in the emulation, but in the audio department, because it's one of those things. This time last year, playing something like Beastbuster Second Nightmare in MAME was just not a fun experience. But then a lot of the actual software emulation got buttoned up, but we really didn't have much audio whatsoever because it just didn't work. It would be staticky, it would be hitchy, it would clip the overall tracks. It definitely wouldn't be something that was pleasant to your ears. The nice thing is that is 100% fixed now. You can sit down and play all 7 Hyper Neo Geo games from start to finish on MAME, enjoying them, both the gameplay as well as the soundtrack. You just need a pretty decent CPU in your system to get full speed. Let's move into that soundtrack sample now, 45 seconds, but I come back because I got one more game to show. I mean, that basically sounds like what something like Beastbuster Second Nightmare should sound like, and I do have an original PCB, and I have done original arcade captures as well. And because my PCB doesn't come with a sound, I am honestly getting the full volume out of it without having to install a lot of equipment between the PCB. My actual capture setup makes this game that much easier to play. And even though I absolutely love this game, it is one of my favorite arcade games of all time. Being able to play it from start to finish in MAME saves me a ton of time, because getting the entire Hyper Neo Geo 64 board set up with all the controls and audio takes like 45 minutes, and playing the game takes about 25. Now moving over to the last game I'm going to talk about today, this is Shadow Force, a really fun beat 'em up by Technos that has some control improvements, and I'm using this basically to say, I know I talk about the high level stuff in MAME, the stuff you really want to know about, but you definitely should go through all of the notes in the MAME releases to better understand everything that is actually going on. And if you want to see all the other sound improvements to Hyper Neo Geo 64, I will leave a link in the description to the video I did when I was using one of the nightly commits to MAME, because you can test these things ahead of time, and in some instances I actually capture that way to make sure I can have the video out the exact same day that MAME launches. But you guys have a happy Halloween. Leave me a comment down below and tell me what you're doing. And if you've never played Beastbuster Second Nightmare before, trust me, today is the day to do it. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.